What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to talk about Billy PETROLE. His name was William Michael PETROLE. He was called the FARGO Express, one of the most devastating body punches in all of boxing. And he was such an underrated featherweight. Born January 10th, 1905 in Berkwood, Pennsylvania. He died May 14th, 1983. He was 78 years of age at the time of his death. And he would reside in Minnesota. He stood 5 foot 7 inches and had a 70-inch reach. He had 166 total bouts, 90 wins, 21 losses, 10 draws with 1 no contest, and 67 explosive knockouts. He had 37 newspaper decisions as well. And Billy was such a popular fighter that he was on the cover of Ring magazine 3 separate occasions: May 1927, March 1931, and May 1932. Began boxing May 8th, 1922, and he retired in 1934. Now, when he resigned in boxing, he wound up on the board of directors at the Pioneer National Bank. He was raised in Fargo, North Dakota, had a manager by the name of Jack Hurley, who was a trainer in the famous Stillman's gym. Now, Billy PETROLE was one of 19 children. He would win the AAU 1922 featherweight title. And Billy was given that same year a blanket. He was blessed by an Indian chief and told never to leave that blanket at home. Carry it wherever you go. Because during that time of depression, Billy PETROLE, along with the other inner city kids, would always travel and looking for work, trying to find up ways to put food on the table for their families. On May 8th, 1922, he lost his professional debut to Sammy Dawkins. This fight took place in Bolton Hall, Troy, New York, and he would lose 4 rounds. But he would be paid $60. And that convinced Billy PETROLE that was going to be his profession. And Billy PETROLE faced Lewis Kid Kaplan, 1926. And Lewis Kid Kaplan at that time was the current featherweight champion. Billy PETROLE couldn't make weight, so that was a non-title fight. But he was also faced a Jewish featherweight star from the Lower East Side by the name of Sid Terrace. And Sid Terrace was amazing. He's an outstanding fighter. He had knocked out Ruby Goldstein in 1 round. That was a neighborhood rivalry. I heard a lot of stories about that fight. And I can tell you for facts that Sid Terrace was a dynamite puncher. It was also a non-title fight between him and Sammy Mendel. Sammy Mendel would be knocked out by Al Singer in 1 round. And Al Singer would be knocked out in 1 round by Tony Canzoneri. It's funny how that works because Billy PETROLE would also fight Tony Canzoneri and he would defeat him. But then he would lose to him when it mattered most on a title fight. Now, the thing with Billy PETROLE, when he faced Mendel, he had staggered Mendel in the 8th round. Mendel was saved by the bell, and he survived a furious left hook to the body, and he would be given a newspaper decision. And that's one of those things that happened with Billy PETROLE. Sometimes he won fights, sometimes he lost fights, sometimes it was questionable. But he was also in the ring with Doc Snell, August 4th, 1923. Irish Kennedy, 3 fights. He would defeat him all 3 times. Rusty Jones, 2 fights. He would win 1 and lose 1. March 23rd, 1925, Philadelphia Arena. Now, November 1st, 1930, he'd be in the ring with Tony Canzoneri. He would also face Jimmy McLaurin, battling Ballino. You know, Billy PETROLE is such an underrated fighter that you don't hear about him as much. But look at some of the fighters he was in the ring with. He was in the ring with Kid Kaplan and Sid Terrace, Jackie Kid Bird twice, Sammy Mendel, Tony Canzoneri twice, Jimmy McLaurin 3 times, battling Ballino twice, Barney Ross twice, Johnny Farr, Johnny Lamar. He was in the ring with Bushy Jones and Rusty Jones, Otto Wallace, Ray Miller, win 1 and lost 1. Ray Miller was a very hard puncher. He was a lightweight out of Chicago. And he would be famous for being in the ring in 1952, New York Yankee Stadium. And Ray Robinson would face Joey Maxim for Joey Maxim's light heavyweight title. Ruby Goldstein couldn't continue because he ran out of gas as a referee. And Ray Miller would come in to referee the rest of the fight. And that's a true story. It's an amazing, but Ray Miller was a devastating puncher, almost all knockouts, and he came from Chicago. But Billy PETROLE would also be in the ring with King Tut twice, Spud Myers, be in the ring with Bruce Flowers, win 1 and lose 1, Sammy Fuller, win one, and have a draw. Unbelievable fighter was Billy Petrole. Billy Petrole had problems making 135 pounds. And when he faced Tony Canzoneri, he would defeat Billy, as well as Jackie Kid Bird and Kid Chocolate. And Billy Petrole would drop to lose the Bonnie Ross 2 fights. And, I believe it was all mental at that point in time in his career, because he was doing very well and he would win some fights. In fact, he was on a 16-fight winning streak. And then he was on a 6-fight winning streak, and then a 10-fight winning streak, and then he would start losing some fights. And unfortunately, that's what happened to a lot of fighters. But I think Billy, although he loved fighting, and he was very good at it, but he was more of a businessman, if you will. And he would eventually own an iron company and religious storefront gift shop. He would earn $200,000 in earnings during the course of boxing. And that's pretty good for a young man of his caliber. But the fights that most intrigued me are the 2 fights with Battling Ballino. Billy Petrole was somewhat of a swarmer. Came in with 2 hands. Very good boxer, but he could punch. And I think he did very well for the course of his career. And I just wanted to remember Billy Petrole. His name was the Fargo Express, one of the most dynamic punchers in boxing history. When you think about body punching, you think about Freddie Steele, and you think about Billy Petrole. It's Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Salute to Billy Petrole.